Hey guys, so once again, I'm here and I'm going to create this screencast as sort of a supplement to the last one that I share with you for today on creating your works cited page. I just want to touch on a couple of things that I didn't get to talk a whole lot about in the previous one. So what I want to talk about on this screencast is what I've noticed that students have the hardest time with when it comes to citing their sources. It's not that you can't follow the template. Students are good at that. But where students go wrong is that they mistake the type of source that they're looking at and they try to cite it like something else. And then it doesn't work, inevitably. You put in something as the title of a book, but it's not the title of a book. Or you don't know you can't find the volume number, so you just say, oh, well, there's no volume. And so then what ends up happening is students screw up the citations because they didn't know what type of source they were looking at and where to find the right information. So I just want to spend a little bit of time doing that with you. So I'm going to share my screen here. And let's go with Chrome right here. Here we go. All right, so now you should be able to see my screen. And I'm starting off right here with this is your lesson plan that you'll see in Schoology. And this is a boatload of links. But primarily, you've already probably looked at this, and this, which is kind of cool. I sort of pulled it up here just to kind of show you. This basically takes everything that was on that PowerPoint for like, okay, so yeah, I know an author comes first. Well, how do I do that author? What do I need to know about putting that author's name? This tells you all just 4 flat out bullet points, no worries. And I think this is just kind of a handy little reference page. One thing you'll see down here at the bottom, it says for this paper, you should not include the URL for website sources. When you look at the quick guide for citing a website, it will tell you, do what your teacher asks. And I personally don't want a URL. I get bugged by the formatting that happens when you type in URLs and then they take up like an entire line and then they move it down and blah, 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 blah. And honestly, I don't need them. If I need to find your source, I'll find the source. And if I can't find it, I will contact you. I don't need you to include the URL. But I just want to let you know that that reference is there for you. But what I'm primarily concerned about is this screencast is going to get linked right here. And this is about telling what type of source you have. Here's a doc that may help you. And I created this years ago, and it's come in super handy. And it kind of helps you identify, like, okay, a book with one author. How do I know it's a book with one author? Well, that one's kind of duh. But even if there's actually 2 or 3 authors, it can still qualify as this type of source. Is there an anthology with many authors? Well, if there's an editor or no name listed at all on the cover page, then you've probably got an anthology. Is it a web article? Is it a database article? If it is a database article, was it originally in a journal or a periodical, or was it originally in a book? You have to cite it differently depending on which type it is. And if you're not paying attention, and let's just say it was a book, but you're trying to cite it like it was a journal, it's not gonna work for you. And you're gonna be confused. And if you don't ask questions or you don't recognize that, you're going to sort of steer yourself really wrong. So what I want to do now, it's just like we're in class, isn't it? What I want to do right now is just kind of show you a couple of things. So the first thing I want to show you is back on the lesson plan. I've linked down here at the very bottom to the citation quick guides. I mentioned them in the last screencast. When you click on that link, it's going to take you into this folder. And now in the screencast, I showed it as like one big, like 6-page PDF. For you guys, I've actually expanded on it. And instead of having one big PDF, I have a bunch of them. And I've also actually added a couple of extras, like I included one for a podcast, one for a video, one for a website, well, one for a YouTube video, a PDF or other sort of file that you found on the web through a Google search, not like a website, but you go do a Google search and you click on it and it pops up a PDF, but you weren't in a database. So there's a whole bunch of them. And just like you saw in the other video, when you pull it up, it tells you, like, if you've got a YouTube video, this is exactly what you're going to need. You're going to need the author, the title of the source. You're going to need the title of container, the other contributors, maybe, and the publication date. That's it. And then there's some examples here. The problem is with that big, like 9-part system, not every type of source is going to have all 9 of those parts. And what the quick guide does is it tells you, okay, for this type of source, these are the parts you should have. Sort of guides your thinking. But anyway, so here's a whole bunch of them. Please reference them. The one that I want to talk about, the couple things that I definitely want to talk about today is just sort of regular websites. I'm going to use a news website to kind of show you where to find the information. So I'm going to go back here. If I pull up a website and I zoom in a little bit, it says that I need the author, the title of the article, okay, the title of the container. It's not going to have any of these things, but I will have a publishing company and a date. No URL. So I'm just going to find a news article. Let me go to, I'll just go out to CNN to find a news article. And, oh, let's look at this non-COVID related article. Something to do with football. All right. So if this were the source that I were going to be using, obviously, here's the name of the author. Here's the article. When I come down here and I need the date of publication, I actually want to use the full date if I have it. Don't just use 2020 or the copyright date or whatever. If you have a full date on a newspaper article or a website article, use it. And then the title of the container would be CNN. Your title is CNN or Cable News Network. Don't put CNN.com. Ooh, look, Anderson Cooper. Oh, thank you. You don't want to put CNN.com, okay? A website title, a container title, is not a URL. Just making a note to myself for that. Okay. And so then the other thing you're going to need, we go back here, is the publisher. That would be the sponsor. A lot of times for websites, your publisher of your website is the same as the title of the website. The best way to find that is usually to go to the bottom and find out what's down here by the copyright. And here it says 2020 Cable News Network, Turner Broadcasting Systems, Inc. Honestly, you could use either one of those and I wouldn't probably raise a fuss about it or even know it. But understand that a lot of times your publisher is going to be exactly the same thing as your website title. And then you need the date. If that article wouldn't have had a date on it, then I would just use 2020. But as I mentioned, since this current article does in fact have a date, when I get to that part of my citation, I want to actually use this whole April 21st, 2020 thing, right? Websites are pretty easy. The two biggest things that I see students do with websites is for the website title, the container title, they'll say it's CNN.com. It's not, it's CNN. You can spell out Cable News Network if you prefer, but don't call it CNN.com. And then the other thing that students struggle with is the sponsor or the publisher, and then finally making sure they use the full date. If you run into any issues with websites where you feel like you can't find the information or you don't know, that's what I'm here for. Shoot me a message of any type and I'll help you out. I'll pull up the web page, give me the link, and I'll try to find it, and I'll give you my best judgment to help you cite the source correctly. I'd rather take the time to help you so you get it right than have you say, oh, I don't know, I'm just going to try it this way. Right? The other thing I want to do is just go through citing something from a database, because if you look over here, there's actually 3 of them. One of them says citing an article from a database that was a book. One says citing an article from a database that was a periodical. And one says citing an article from a database in general. Basically, things that are in databases for the most part existed before they ended up in that database. They were published in some sort of magazine or newspaper or academic journal. And then somebody at Gale purchased them and said, okay, yay, we have rights to all these things. We're just going to digitize it all and make it all easily searchable, which is great. But that means when you're working with databases, there's multiple containers because you've got to account for, okay, where was this originally published? And then where did I find it? And so, for example, I'll just pull up this general one. So the first thing you're going to have is your author and title as usual, but then you're going to have the container that it was originally in. And you're going to go through and you're going to publish all of this information that you have about the container it was originally in. And then you're going to post all of this information, if you have it, which you probably won't, if it was published somewhere else. Because sometimes things are published in a journal and then in a book. And then you're going to have the container that you found it in, which is the database. So working with things in databases gets murky. The biggest murky thing is figuring out what you need for here, because this is going to look different. This says your title was either a journal, a newspaper, a book, or encyclopedia. But depending on which of those it is, that's going to determine what of this stuff you have. And that's why I actually created these two other ones, which you can see are a little bit shorter. If it was originally in a book, you're only going to have these things because books don't have volumes. If it was originally in a database, or I'm sorry, if it was originally in a periodical, you're only going to have these because you're not going to have an editor because magazines don't list their editors, or at least their editors aren't as important. So, yeah, so database citing comes a little tricky. So I want to show you how to figure out what type of source you're looking at and where to find all these little bits of information. I need the password here, which, as I told you before, is Eagles. And I'm just going to search the same way I did in the screencast that I showed you guys last week. Adoption, no, not adoption of the report. All right, so these are the same things that I found before. Now, for example, these here, it tells you flat out that they're magazines. So we know that if I click on this, let's just go here. I know this was from a magazine, and so that this would fit right into an article from a database periodical. And so I know I'm looking for the title of the container where it was published, the number, that would be the volume or issue number, publication date, and location. So if I go over here, I'm very lucky because I have all that information right here. It tells me that this was the container title, The Exceptional Parent, that was the title of the magazine. It was volume 40, issue 11. Excellent. I have the date right here. I have, what else am I looking for? The location, that would be the page numbers in this case. Whoops, where was I? In this case, I don't think it tells me. Sometimes it will. If I get a PDF, sometimes it'll give me a PDF, or sometimes if I look down here at their source citation, here actually it does. It tells me it was on 36 plus. That means it started on page 36. So sometimes you can find that information. You just got to look around for it. Let's go see what else I've got. These news articles, these are also going to be periodicals. So you would cite this just the same as over here. The container where it was originally published, the number, the publication date, the location, and then the database that you found it in. So back over here, I've got a date and I've got the original publication. That was the original container title. I don't have much other information because magazines like this tend to not be quite so organized by volume and whatnot. Yeah, so see down here we have Pediatrics Weeks, and then we have the date, 30th of July, 2011. And we have the page number, page 78. So This one doesn't have a volume and issue, even though this over here says a periodical would. So you kind of got to, for me, it's all really simple because I know what I'm looking at, but you don't necessarily have that expertise. Academic journals, they're also publications. They're also periodicals. I'm looking for, I don't have anything here that was originally published in a book. So let me go back. I'm gonna find, I did a second search, adoption. I think when I did this, yeah, okay. So here's an example of a book. And now these are like reference books, and you will have no reason to use reference books in your research paper. You want to find sources that are offering opinions, not definitions, and not background information. But for the sake of a model, this was in a reference book. So if I click on this, and I use it, background general information about adoption. Let's just say I want to use this and I want to cite this. This is the citation quick guide that I want to go to. All right. So I need the author and the title. I have an editor, and I have a title that would be adoption. I keep clicking on that. And then I need the title of the container, the title of the book that it originally appeared in. That would be this, the Gale Encyclopedia of Psychology. The version and the number. This, in this case, is actually useful because a lot of books don't have that, but this one does. Volume 1, 3rd edition. You're going to need to include that because encyclopedias have multiple volumes, multiple editions, all of that. The publisher, in this case, it tells us Gale is the publisher. Imagine that, we found it in the Gale database. And then the location, the page numbers, etc. I don't see the page numbers here. Let's see if I scroll way down. Yeah, it says it was on pages 22 to 25. So there you go. So you kind of got to look around a little bit, but all of the information that you need to cite them is there. You just have to know what you're looking at. The title of the article is always this one. The title of the container is going to be this one. Gale databases have this really nice setup at the top now. If you're working in a different database, that may not be so simple. Another thing, like you can end up in kind of a goofy scenario. Let me go back and show you something else. So this one, whoops. One article that I found last time, down here, this one. This is actually an article that I ended up using that I really, really liked. And we can see all of the information we need to know is right here. And when I downloaded it, I think this is how I got it. Yeah, so what this actually gives me, wait for it to finish downloading. It actually gives me a PDF of the article, and this is like where it was actually published. So I can see here, this was the page itself. It's not even like a type, word process. This is just a scan of the original thing, and we can get all the information here too. This tells me it was the Journal of Counseling and Development, fall 2003, volume 81. This even tells me it was pages 389 to 399. So if you get the PDF, usually that information will be in there as well. I hope you found this helpful. Citing sources is something that you do, you've been doing it since probably 7th or 8th grade, but as you get older, you start to have a little bit more freedom with the types of sources you're allowed to use. You start running into different scenarios, and something that maybe an 8th grade teacher would have said, yeah, okay, I'm not worried about this. This is good enough. Now maybe in AP English or in college, your professor is going to say, no, you have to do this right. And as I said, kind of the most important thing is not that students can't follow the templates, but that they don't know what they're looking at and where to find it. And I really want you guys to work with me as you're drafting your citations and ask questions, rather than, I don't want you to turn it in next week and have it be a mess and me have to scribble all over it with my, my Apple Pencil. That they're all wrong. I want you to get them right. Because I want this to be a learning experience. I want you to learn how to do it. And you only do that by asking for help. So I'm here. Please reach out. Thanks.